Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. First of all, I would like to apologize from you guys that I haven't been consistent with my tutorials related to Django. I started this series called Django Block Project, and I was kind of busy with a lot of things for last weekend, and for that reason, I wasn't able to post new updates on this Django Block Project video. So here I am today and with a new tutorial, and in this lesson of today we are going to learn about the user registration, login and logout functionality in your Django application. Now my last tutorial was quite long, so I will try to complete the tutorial as fast as possible. So let's get started. The first thing I will do is obviously start my environment and the Django application. So let's open up our CMD, and here I'll just go ahead and say environment slash scripts, and then I will activate my environment. And then what we can do here is we can just start Python manage .py run server. Let me see one thing for sure. Yeah, we are inside of the manage in the root directory, so we can write here python manage.py and run server, and this will start our Django server application. Now it will take a couple of seconds to run the server, and after the server is run, it will be launched in the 8000 ports. So we are going to open up this in our Chrome browser with localhost, and we'll go to 8000 port here. So this was our last update. We created a Django application. We created some posts from the admin panel, and we created a functionality through which a certain user can see the full details of a post. So now in this lesson of today, we are going to learn the user login, registration and logout functionality, because I think that that is the most important part of any application. And before doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Bootstrap 4 for our Django application styling, because I don't like the current view of our application. So I'm going to use the Bootstrap 4 the quick start CSS. So I'm just going to copy this CSS here. I can just click here to get the CSS, and then I will go to directly to my index.html, and either I can just post here, or what I can do here, guys, I can show you guys a very cool trick that we call as template inheritance. Because if you look closely here, one thing that I have HTML here in the index.html. I have again this same boilerplate in my post detail.html. So what is happening here, that I have to write the HTML full boilerplate from starting to the end every time I am creating a new template, and I think that is a bit annoying, and we want to do things dynamically. So in this template folder, I am going to create a new file, which I will save it as our layout.html. So this file will contain the basic necessary layout of any HTML web page, and only a certain section of the page is going to be updated. So what I'm going to do here, similarly, I'm just going to add a basic boilerplate, and here I will give this title called the Django application. And there are certain ways we can update this title in any web page, and which I will show you guys later. And for now, what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to remove this part, and I'm going to just remove this part, because The only thing that is going to be updated is the section of the body, and the upper section, the HTML header and the footer section, these are going to be remain same. So here I will add a Django expression called block content, and I can also add here percentage signs and in block. I can also give the call the name in block content, and the only thing I need to do now is I can just go to my index.html, and I can even just remove here all the upper HTML and the lower HTML. And since I will be using the template inheritance, I can call the Django expression extends, and here I'll just call the layout.html, and I can just go ahead and add the block content. Okay, so I can start from here. I can add our block. Okay, so block content, and here we will add the in block content. And add some space for breathing. Similarly, in my post detail.html, I can do the same thing. First, I will do the inheritance, which is called the template inheritance. So extends, then layout.html, and here after the extending, we will call our block content. So block content, and here in block content. Okay, so that was fast, and so we created our layout, and we added a block content here, and the only thing that is going to be updated is this part of the body, and other parts like this declaration and the footers are going to be same in every web page. So let me save it here, and let me see if my Django application is working fine. So it returns us a 200 status after saving. Now let us see what is going on here. So if I reload this, you don't see anything wrong here, or it doesn't throw us any error. We can even go through the view page source to see if our application or the HTML inheritance is working. So we can see the home page inherits all the HTML that is necessary, and we can even go through the view post and go through the view page source to see if the HTML inheritance is working. And to be sure, what I can do here is that you can see that only my layout.html has now the title. So if instead of Django application, if I say here DJ application, and if I save it here, and then if I run this part, or even just the application tab, you can see that the title actually changed here. We can also reload here, and you can see the title changed dynamically, which means that the template inheritance is working fine. Now we will just go through and copy this CDN link from the Bootstrap 4 of the CSS, and then we'll go to our layout.html, and after our title we'll add the link tag here. The next thing we need to do is to copy all of our JS script and then add it to the bottom after the content of our body, so that we can add functionalities that Bootstrap provides us. Okay, so let me save it here, guys, and if I go to my home page here, you will see that our styling of the web page has dynamically been changed. We can also go to the view post, and you can see that now it is looking quite nice and very much clean. but we need to do some styling as well. But in this part we are not going to be focusing on the styling much, because we will focus on how a user can be created or registered, and how a user can log in and log out. So that are only three functionalities we are going to see throughout this tutorial. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is that since I have already added the bootstrap, I need to add a component called navbar in order to add the buttons for login, logout, and I'll also use some forms from our bootstrap, so that let's see if I have components here to register a user. Or okay, so where is our navbar? Yeah, we have a navbar here, and I'm going to add a very simple navbar. Okay, I can add this navbar here. So I'm going to click the copy button here, and now guys, let me show you another cool templating in Django, uh, which is we call is as you can think of it like components. We can add a new HTML file here, new HTML file here. We will save it as like nav.html, and what I will do here is that I will just simply go ahead and paste out all the navigation related HTML here, and then I will save it, and in my layout.html I'm going to include the navigation uh, here. So here I will call the include from Django, and Django template expression, and I will add the nav.html. So what will be happening now, that this will be added to every web page in our application. I'm just going to reload this, and you can see a navigation has been added. If I open up any post, you can see the navigation still exists. So this is a way you can add a piece of templating in your layout, or you can do this similar thing in any other web page. So why this is helpful, because maybe at a certain point you just want to focus on the navigation part of the web page, and you want to avoid the other complexities. So for that reason we can create components like this, and we can just only focus on one thing at a time. Now in the form, instead of calling the input, I don't need the input functionality now. I'm just going to change this from form to div, because we are not working with any form related stuff right now. Now let me just give it a name as login. For now, just it won't be working or doing anything else. We can also just go ahead and delete all this drop down. We don't need that. We can have a home button, and then we can actually go ahead and add our home. I don't currently remember if I have added any name to my URLs. So let me see if yeah, we have a home here. So what I can do here in my nav, here in the ahref, we can call the percentage and the URL tag, and in the single quotation we can pass the home route. Okay, that is now for now. I can also change this to about. Since we're working with blog, maybe we want to create an about page, and later we can just link this to that about page. Okay, so our work for the navigation is done. Let's go to our web page and refresh, and you can see it has been changed. I can also go ahead and change my yeah, the brand name. I can say this, let's say Django blog something like that. Let me save that, and if I refresh, that should be doing here. Now I'm not very much good at CSS, but I know a little bit of Bootstrap. So I'm going to do one thing here that I need pretty much every time I'm working inside of any Django application, which is just a container from our Bootstrap. It's not working here. Let me see what's the problem. Okay, I'm just going to add it here. So class container, and this will create a basic container so that we can maintain a consistency. Okay, so our container is ready, and let's go to our index.html. For now I'm just going to remove this, and here I can add a class. Actually this should be inside of a nested div, so I'm just going to cut out this, and here I have a div, and inside that we'll post it here, and here I can go ahead and call it or give it a class name, or I can just use the Bootstrap utilities. So I'll just say margin top to be, let's say, 5. So let me save that, and if I go here and run, then we have a little bit of spacing. The title is also not there, which is quite nice. We can also give it a, I think, let's see, we have width of 10. That is okay. Let me just edit pt here, saying, yeah, okay, for now that is completely fine. Now for creating your user registration, we'll go to actually I think for this project it wasn't necessary, but let me show you a way that we can actually create another app just for user registration, logout, and the login functionality. So for that reason I'm just going to close it for now here, and then we know that how to create your app, right? So just let's say python manage.py and start app. We'll call this app as accounts. Okay, so let's say accounts, and let me go to the directory here, and we can see that there is accounts. So now we need to connect this app to our URLs, or the main URLs. So we know how to do that. We can just go ahead and inside the accounts we can create a new file. Let's name this file as urls.py, and this will be our custom URLs file. We can go to the main URLs from the project file, and let me just go ahead and copy this part, and in my accounts URL I can just give it a comment. Then this is the accounts URLs file, and here I can just paste it all the codes I needed. I'm going to remove the admin import. We don't need that here, and in the URL patterns I can include, let's say, accounts.create, or maybe something like that. So we have a create, and we need to call the views. So let's say from views views import everything. So let's go to our views file, and here we'll create several views. So we have, let's say, user login, and we'll pass the request object first, and here I'll just go ahead and pass for now because we are not working with the login. And similarly I will create a user registration. So user registration, and we'll pass the request, and we'll go ahead ahead and add pass here. I'm just creating the basic boilerplate that will be need in order to work with the application. Okay, so we'll add a pass here as well. So we have our views. Now just we need to add this to our URLs. So this is our custom URLs file, and I'm going to add this, and I'm going to give it this route a name, which will be just say register. Okay, so let me save that. And you know what, I'm also going to add a registered HTML in order to see if this is working or not. So I have already shown you how to create templates inside the root directory, but there is another way you can create templates inside your the app directory. So in the accounts, right, in the accounts we can create a new folder here, which we can call as templates, and inside the templates we will create another folder, let's say another folder, which we will call it as the accounts. And I know this is a little bit weird, but this is how Django mainly works. So here inside the accounts I will create another file called, and let me save this first, is the register.html. Now you know that we can go ahead and extend the HTML. So extend, and here we'll extend from the layout.html. Now one thing I need to also add is the blog. So this will be blog content, and for now I'll just go ahead and add an h2 tag. Let's say register page. Okay, and here we'll add the login. So sorry, blog in blog, that should be in blog. Okay, in blog content. Okay, so let me save that here, and I need to connect this template with my view. So here we will just return first, then we'll call the render function, we'll pass the request object, then inside our accounts, this should be actually, yeah, accounts slash register.html, and we are not going to pass any context for now. Let me just save it, and to connect this app to our main project, we'll just go to our URLs project. So this is sorry about that. So I'm going to add a comment here because this can get confused. We'll say this is the main URLs file. Okay, and here we can just go ahead, and similarly we can like the blog, we can include our accounts app. So we can give it a URL called account. Okay, I can actually go ahead and say user, and here we can say include, and we can add the accounts dot URLs. Now we are done with pretty much everything, but the final thing we need to do is to go to our settings.py, because since we created a new application we must register it. So make sure your the installed app name is correct. So let me save that, and let's go to our application. I'm hoping that I will not face any problem here. So let's say user slash create. Okay, so this doesn't work because we haven't started our application. So manage.py run server, and the server should be started. Now if I go ahead and reload this, it said page not found. Django tried the URLs. Let me see if I can have this here. So why it's not working? Page not found. Django tried URL patterns in this folder, but it is not worked. So let me see what is wrong here. Okay, it's not able to find that. We have the accounts here, and we have the accounts URLs here. So let me see how our block structured worked actually. In the block we have all the thing we need here. We have views, so that was connected, and actually added a slash something here. So okay, so now I get it what is wrong here. Let me see here in our URLs file we should not add anything here. Okay, and let me go to our accounts URLs, and let's say this should be register. Okay, so let me save that, and here in this after the slash let's add register. If I add here, it says here that in red block extend, did you forget to load this tag? So okay, so I think I have a spelling mistake here guys, because if we go to the other templates folder here in our layout index.html, this should be actually extends. So in my templates and accounts and in the register this should be extends, not extend. Save all, and let me refresh the page, and it says registered page. So we have finally successfully able to connect our new app to our main project, and we also created a view and a custom URL, and then we added that view to our application. So this starts a new app here. Now Django provides us with several functions. One of them is the user creation form from the authentication forms that we can use to create a new user for our application. But there are some limitation with that user creation form, and one of the reason is that it doesn't let you add any sort of new field. The one thing we can do is that we can go ahead and create our own custom form and then add a certain new field to that form, so that we can add the email of the user as well as the username and password and the password confirmation. Okay, so let's go to back to our editor, and here inside the accounts we can create a file called forms.py. So okay, so I'm going to just save it, save this, and let me save it as let's say forms.py, and let me save it as here. So the three things I will need here is the register, forms.py. I will also be needing our blog project URL. Actually I don't need that. I just need the views. Okay, URLs, and I don't need the index.html. I don't even need the nav. I don't need the layout, and I don't need this post. So I'm just going to remove all the distraction from here. Okay, so in my forms.py we are going to import the forms from Django. So from Django import forms, and then we are going to import the user creation form that is built in our Django. So Django.contrib.auth and .forms import user creation form. User creation form. So it should be form, not form. and then we need to also add import the user model that is built in Django. So from Django dot sorry about that, contrib, and then we need to add the auth and the models, and we need to import the user model. Okay, so now it's time to create our custom form. So for this reason I'm going to create a class. So I'll call this class as new user form, and I'm going to import or actually I'm going to inherit the default user creation form so that we can use the functionalities of this class in our child class. Okay, so here I'm going to create a new field called email, because in the user creation form, when if you just add the user creation form for user registration, Django will just simply ask your username and password, but it will you cannot add email field to your registration form. You have to do that manually through your admin panel. So in order to add a custom field to our user creation form, we'll add a field in our custom form. Okay, so here we'll call this field as email, and we'll call the forms class, and then we'll add the email field so that we can tell Django that this is an email field, and we set it as required true. So any user who is registering in your blog must add their email. Then we'll call the meta class, sorry about that, class meta. So this will be our meta class, and this is for providing the information to our new user form. Here we'll add okay, so I don't know why the indentation is not working correctly right now, so I'm going to add 4 spaces, 1 2 3 4. Actually that is too much, 1 2 3. Okay, so we are going to add the model. We are defining the user model for our meta class, and then we are going to add the fields that will be required in our custom form, and this will be a fields tuple. So we'll need the username from the user first, then we will be needing the email, and finally we will be needing the password 1. So this is password 1, and now we need the password 2. Okay, and the final thing we need to add is a method to save our user. So what I can do here, I can create a function or a method called save, and this will be the function that will help us to add new user in our database. So I'll call the self first, because since we are using a method inside of a class, we need to call the self, and then I'll set the commit parameter that is required by this save function to true, so that we can add new user here. Okay, and then I don't know why my indentation is not correctly working right now. Let me create an instance of our new custom user form by calling the first super class, which is actually this user creation form, and then here I will call our custom user form and call this self, so that we can use the save method of our parent class. Okay, and here in the save method we'll set the commit to false just for now, in order to not save the user right now after calling the save method, because we want to validate the email of the user. So in order to validate the user email, or to add email in our user object, we can say user.email equals to self.cleaned cleaned data, and here in the brackets I'll pass the email. So this will eventually validate our email when the user adds an email to the form, and then we'll check if sorry about that. If the commit is true, then we must go ahead and save the user. So it should be at least 4 spaces. Okay, 1 2 3 4, and this should be user dot save. Okay, and then we need to return the user or the saved new saved user, so that we can on the basis of that we can redirect the user to the home page or maybe the profile page or something like that. So we have our custom user form here, and now the simplest thing I need to do here is I will install first a package which is called the crispy form, because that will be we will be needing in that in order to style our form. So let me go to the browser here, and here I will search for crispy form stack Django. Okay, so this should be giving me some few things like pip install package, and then I need to add several settings, and finally I can I can see how to use that crispy form stack in my form. So let's go to here. First we need to install this. So let's go. Okay, so this is Bootstrap 5, although I don't need that. I can say pip install crispy forms. So crispy forms, let's say, which is Django crispy forms. Okay, installation, yeah, add that here. Okay, I can just go ahead and close the terminal for now, and here I'll just paste to install the package first. And there are several ways you can install it here. Next thing is the crispy tags. Actually before that we'll just focus on the installation. We have Bootstrap 4 support here. So this is the Bootstrap 4 actually. Okay, let's go ahead and add the crispy Bootstrap 4 here. So it says the requirement is already satisfied. Okay, that solves one problem. Now for setting the static files, we are not working with the static files. There is no documentation on how to add it to your Django. Okay, let's go back to our Google search first. Okay, and we'll follow the procedure from here. So we need to add a few things here to your settings.py. So I'm going to add crispy forms, and here in my settings, let's go to our settings, and here I'll just add crispy forms. And since I have added the Bootstrap 4, then just go ahead and copy this part, and I can just go ahead and change this to Bootstrap 4. Okay, the next thing, installation Bootstrap 4. I want to see a certain documentation. Okay, so we need to install this. Alright, and we need to add this. So I'm just going to come right down here, and here I'm going to add this. Yes. So we have template tag to Bootstrap 4 and allow template flags to Bootstrap 4. Alright, so it should be working now fine. And for saving our time, I'm just going to be copying this form here and paste this form in our register. Okay, so here I'll add this and we say load crispy forms tag. We have a CSRF token that is very much required in your forms, and for now we are not okay, we need this post method, because since we'll be working with creating a new user, and this form, this will be a context from our view. So let's go to our views, and let's add here, and now we know that we have a new user form here. So let's go ahead and paste here, and we'll just call it request. So we also need to import that. So forms forms import new user form. Okay, and we are going to send this as a context. So let me create a context here. Okay, and I can just pass the context object here, and let me now go ahead and save all, and this should giving us a form. So if I reload this, there should be a form included here, or I should see some kind of error. Sorry about that, I forgot to restart the server again. So python manage.py run server, and it's running the server. So let me refresh this, and it says here that block tag with content appears more than once. So let me see what is going on here. I see that is the problem here. So let me just remove this part, because we already have a block content, and since this will be let me add it to here. Okay, so now I'm hoping that it's not going to throw us any error. Alright, so it should be on the top. Okay, and then if I go ahead and refresh this, it says here the WSGI request object has no get attribute. So what is the problem here? Let me see what is the problem. Request or post. Okay, I see. So in my views, instead of request, this should be actually request or post, and now I'm hoping that this should be working. Okay, so if I just go ahead and reload, so I can see a register form here. Okay, so we have the basic necessary all the fields here, just like we added in our forms. We have the username, then we have the email, then we have password, and we have the password confirmation as well. One thing we don't have right now here is the button to submit the form. So let's go back to our form, and in our register HTML, here we will add a simple button to submit. So I'll add here a button, and the type of this button will be submit. Now I need to add a class as well to style our button. So this will be btn, and let's say btn dash primary, and let's say register. Okay, so let me save that, and if I go ahead and refresh the page, you can see that there is a register button. Okay, so we are done with creating custom form, and we are also done with creating the HTML that is required for creating your register page. But we need to work with the functionality as well. So let me go back to our views, and here inside our views, in the registered user registration view, we need to add a few things to add a new user. So first of all, very much I will always see if the request.method is post or not. So let's see if the request method or the request that is coming from our front end is post or not. So if that is a post request, then we want to create a form instance of the new user form. We want to pass the request.post method, and then uh, what this is going to do is that this is going to get all the data from the request, and then it will pass it to this instance, actually to this class, so that the user model that is added in our user form, or our uh, the main explanation actually goes here that this new user form, if you see it just closely, this is actually inheriting from this user creation form, which is typically going to be adding the user or the newly registered user to our user model. So that I think explains everything. Then the next thing is that we need to check if the form is valid or not, because there might be some kind of like say input that is not valid to any field. So if the form is finally valid, if it is valid from all sides, then we want to go ahead and create this or actually save this new user. So form dot save, this is a method that will save this user, and then we can go ahead and just go ahead and log in the user, and request, we need to pass the request, then we need to pass the user. So this login method, we also need to import this method in order to log in our registered users. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this login method from our Django contrib. So the Django dot contrib dot auth import login. So this will be helping us for logging the user. Now we can also create some sort of notification for the user that it has been registered or it has been successfully registered. So let me add the messages system from our Django. So this will be Django dot contrib dot actually import, and this will be messages. Okay, so after the user has successfully registered and after he has been logged in, we want to send a message. So let's say messages dot success, and the success message requires first the request and then registration. So one thing you have to remember this that this messages is actually a one-time message. So once the page gets refreshed, then the user can't see the message anymore. So let me just go ahead and return, and this time we want to redirect the current logged in user. So I'll call the redirect method, and I want to redirect the user to our home page. So let me just add the home URL here. So one thing I would like to do here is that I would like to call the redirect method here. Okay, because if we don't import that, then this is not going to work. Okay, so now if our user has been registered, then he will be redirected to our home, and if for some reason the user registration has been failed, then we want to send a message. So messages dot error, that first it will require the request, and then we can send a message that say unsuccessful registration. Okay, and maybe invalid transfer, invalid information or something. Okay, so that finishes the user registration view, and finally I can just go ahead and save it, and let me go to the register page. So I can just go ahead and refresh this page, and let us see what's going on. Okay, maybe there's an error on the line. So it says request equals to post, cannot assign attribute here. Oh, I see. This is a typo error. This is one of the things that I actually do much, and I am actually working on fixing this problem. So this checks if the request method is post or not, and then we create a new form. Actually, we are saving the user data from the request, and we are checking if the form data is valid or not, and if the data is valid, then we'll just go ahead and create a new user. That's all, and then we will finally redirect and log in the user. So I hope that works, and let me just go ahead and refresh. so it's going to work. Okay, so I have already an admin user or something like that. So let's say I'm going to create a user called Nick. Okay, and maybe I can create an email here, say nick at gmail.com, and then I can add a password here, let's say 1234, and let's say 1234. But one of the things is that you can't actually go ahead and register like that, because there are some rules that you have to follow in order to register the user. If you don't follow the password regulations, then this user will not be able to register. So what I'm going to do here is let me just open up notepad first. So notepad, and here I will add the password for Nick. So let's say Nick 59, and add, let's say 7524, like that, something like that. I think that is okay password. Okay, so I know guys that this is taking a bit longer than I promised, because the registration process is actually quite longer. The login and the logout process are very simple. So I have added the passwords here, and as well as the username and the email. Now let me just go ahead and register. So if the registration is successful, then it will throw us into the home page. One thing I actually forgot to add is the messages system, the way you can see messages on your home page. So I think I will be adding the messages later in our functionality. So for now, I'm not going to work with that. So let us see if our user is actually created or not. So localhost, let's say we can add 8000, and then we can go to the admin panel, and here I will just go and log in. So okay, so let's see, registration successful. Okay, so what happens here is that I created a new user, and through the message we actually registered that user. Now the Django also says here that you are authenticated as Nick, but we are not authorized to but you are not authorized to access this page. Would you like to log into a different account, something like that? But okay, so Nick is not authorized to log in, but I know one user is authorized to log in. Let me just say admin, and if I know, say, let me add my password here. Let's say it says you are please enter the correct username. Maybe I am super user. Okay, so I logged in as now super user. Okay, so let me go to the user section here, and you can see this is admin, which is me, and I have created a new user called Nick, and we haven't added the first name or last name of the user. We can later actually create functionalities in the profile page section, so that the user can be able to add his first name and the last name. So later we can see that, but now you know how to create or register a new user in your application. Okay, so next thing I would like to do is, since we have created or able to register a user, we want to also able to log out any user or log in any user. Okay, so let me first log out from here. So this will log out all the users that has been logged out. Okay, so if I select here, okay, now let me add one functionality here in the navigation section. So in the navigation component, nav. So this is not going to be a button, instead this is going to be a class anchor tag, and here we will add a login URL. So this will be a login page URL, which will take us to the login URL. Okay, so inside the accounts template, I'll create a new page here, new file here. Let's say login dot. Actually, let me first save that. So this should be login.html, and we have the login.html. Now all I need to do here is, let me go to the register page. I'm just going to copy this and just paste it out here. Just remove the forms for now. We'll add the login, and then I need to connect the template with my URL. So let me go actually in my views. So this would be our, let's say this should be return render, and this should be request. Okay, and this should be our template. So this should be our accounts slash login.html, and now we need to import this into our custom URLs, which is right here. So here I'm going to create a new path for login. So let me add path, let me add the login. Here we'll add the user login function, and then call name, and inside the name I'll pass the login. Okay, so that should be creating our login view. Okay, so if I just go here, say login, it says that str object has no meta attribute. What is the str object? Str object login attribute has no meta attribute. So what is the problem here? Resource get. Okay, why is not working here? Let me see, guys, one thing. We have user login, we have request. Oh, I see what's the problem here. So this should be without quotes. So let me save all, and now it should not throw us any error. Okay, so our login page has already also been created. There is one thing I would like to do is let me go to the Bootstrap again. So Bootstrap 4, actually it should be Bootstrap 4. I should have keep it opened. Bootstrap 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do the Google search again. And in the Bootstrap 4, let's go to here. And inside the Bootstrap 4, we are going to search for forms. Let's see, forms. And I'm just going to copy this because we'll be using the username and the password, and here we have the templates. So let me go ahead here, and in the where is the, okay, so there is the login actually here. Let me just go ahead and create a div with a class of margin top 5 with h2 of login page, something like that. And I'm going to add this here. Now since we are working with form, we need to add one thing for sure, and that is we need to import this CSRF token. This is very much required in every Django form, because that will help you to prevent any kind of cross-site scripting attack. So form, let me just add it here. So let me save all, and if I go here and yeah, and this, you can see that there is a login page here. Okay, so we don't need the email address. Instead, we need the username from our user. So let me say username, and let me give it as an uppercase. So here I can just say change that to username, and let go ahead and also create a name attribute which is required by every form, and just delete this part, and here in the placeholder I can say username, enter username. Okay, and in the password this should be password, so I can just go ahead and change this to, let's say, password, and here let's say this should be name as password, so we can see the password actually. Now we don't need this check me out or something like that, we can go ahead and remove this. Okay, so that should be pretty much for our form, and we can also change this to our login. So yeah, we are done with creating the form. Okay, let me just go ahead and refresh this, and it just requires the username and the password, just like it requires us to add username and the password in our admin panel actually. And I can go ahead and do a little bit styling here as well. So let me say deflex and flex md row and justify dash content center align dash item center, so that we can add this to directly to our center position. Okay, if I go to refresh, then this add the center position. So one thing it is happened here is that it should be here. Okay, I guess what the problem is, let me just go ahead and cut this out here. So this should be class here, and this should be flex call. So deflex flex call, justify content center, align item center. Refresh, that should be you know what, I think I have to look the flex again. I haven't used the Bootstrap for a quite long time. I'm working with the Tailwind kind of days right now. So this should be actually flex. So flex, why is always giving the flex? Let's say flex utility. Okay, so we have flex, and it's just display flex and flex column. So that was my mistake actually. Since as I have told you that I've been working with Tailwind quite a lot, so I have forgotten a lot of utilities from the Bootstrap. So if I run this, yeah, we have a short user form here. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to remove this. I don't like this styling. I think the previous styling was much better. So let me say that. Okay, I'm not going to waste my time much on the styling anymore. Now, since we'll be working with the login, we need to go to our views in order to log in the user. Okay, so let's go first in the views, and here we're just first, as I have already told you, I'm just going to check the request method first here. So if the request method is post methods, because since the user is going to be doing the post request, which reminds me that in the HTML, login HTML, we must add the method here, right here, as post method. Okay, so this should be post. Okay, so let's go to login. Okay, views. So we are checking if the request is post method or not here in the login user. Then we need to add something called the authentication from Django in order to authenticate the current user or the request actually. So I'm going to create a form instance of the authentication form. So which reminds me that I need to actually import that form first. So for from the Django dot contrib dot auth and dot forms import the authentication form, and then I need to add the authentication form here. So authentication form, and then I'll just pass the request, and then I'll just go ahead and get the data from our request or post. Okay, so this is the one of the way you actually authenticate the current request. And next thing we obviously need to do is to check if the form is valid or not. So if the form is valid, then we'll first check the username. So we'll get the username from the form. So form dot cleaned, which is the way to clean or the validation of data. So clean it, cleaned. Actually, this should be clean data dot get. Actually, I can just go ahead and pass the username here, and then we can also get the password. So form, actually this should be form and cleaned data, and this should be our password. So you guys might be thinking that, hey, where these things are actually coming from, where these things are actually coming from. This is coming from your where is the HTML? Yeah, in the login HTML, if you remember, I added this name attribute. So I already told you before that this is very much required when you are working with the web application. In any form, this name attribute, which can be a reference to the form data. So so that's how we are actually getting the data from the form. And then since if everything is okay, then we need to go ahead and do the authenticate part. So that reminds me that we also need to import the authenticate. So authenticate user. So login, and then we need to go ahead and do the authenticate part. So let's say user equals to authenticate, and then the way to authenticate is to just go ahead and pass your username to the authenticate function and the password. So this function will actually authenticate if the requested user is actually a valid user or not. Now next thing we need to see, if by any chance if the user is not none, which means that it's not the user, it's not none, because if this is not the correct user or a validate user, then it will just throw us a none. So if the user is not none, this means that it's the correct or valid user of our application. Then we can go ahead and just log in the user through the login method from our Django. Okay. The next thing we need to, we can go ahead and add the messages, and we can go ahead and add the info. So it says here first obviously it is going to take the request, and then we can add, let's say you are logged in. So you are logged in as, and I can go ahead and actually add an f string here. So in the brackets I can go ahead and add the username. So last thing we need to do is obviously going to redirect the user. So we are going to redirect the user to our home. Okay, next we obviously need to check if the user is not a valid user. Okay, which means that if this didn't get the none from this part, then we can go ahead and log in the user. But if the user is actually none, then what we can do here is that we can throw the messages, and actually I can just go ahead and copy this and paste it out here, and then I can just say that invalid username or password, something like that, what we usually see here. So invalid username or password. Okay, now thing I will do here is that I'm going to link our forms. So in our login.html form, I can add, let's say, p tag here, and here say don't have an account, and here I can add an anchor text. Okay, so href and my URL tag, I can go ahead and say add the register. Okay, and I can say register now. So this is an way for the login page to access the or actually travel through the register page as well, and then I can do the similar thing in our register form as well. So in the registration form, where is our registration form? Yeah, in this here you can also add here that let's say already have an account, already have an account. So let's go here, then we can just pass the login URL here. So login, and I can add the login. Okay, so login now. So let me save it here, save all, and if I refresh here, okay, for some reason it's not working. What is authentication from import error? So cannot import name authentication. Okay, I see there is another typo error. Sorry about that, guys. So this should be authentication form here, and let me see why it's not. All right, now I see. Okay, all right, let's go here. Okay, let's run this, and yeah, so it says don't have an account, register now. If I click that, then this is a register page, already have an account, login. So we know that our user is Nick, and then what I can do here is where is my password? I can just go ahead, copy the password of Nick and paste it out here. Now if the user gets logged in, he will be redirected to our home page. Okay, so it says here that alright, I think the problem is here with this HTML page. In the login that we actually typed here email, this should be actually let's say text. Okay, so this should be text. Now the form validation which is default by the HTML should not be creating any problem. So if I paste it here and let's go ahead login, you can see that it actually logged in us. Now there is one cool thing I can do here is that in my navigation, you can see that there is something called a button called login, which we can actually go ahead and set it as the URL for login page. Okay, all right, and you can see if the currently there is a user logged in or not. So I'm going to copy this one here, and actually I'm going to just go ahead, yeah, I'm going to add a Django expression here, which is an if expression. So if request dot user dot is underscore authenticated, okay, then we want to add something here called logout. Okay, logout. So there is no logout URL for now. Let me just go ahead and delete this, and else if there is already logged in user, then we can okay, so if there is the request user is logged in, then we want to show the logout button, and if there is not, then we want to show the login button. And finally we also need to close this if else condition, so we'll add the indef block. So let me save that, and here let me just go ahead and refresh. Okay, so it shows here login. Why it shows here login? If request dot user is authenticated, if request dot is user authenticated, okay, okay, I actually forgot one thing. Okay, so we need to pass the user. Okay, so this should be a user actually. If user dot is authenticated, so if I go ahead and refresh, now you can see that it says logout here. Okay, so we are pretty much done with the registration. We are also done with our login functionality. The final thing we need to do is to create a logout route, and then we need to also add the logout functionality. So just like before, I will go to the let me just close this here for now. We don't need any kind of template in this part. I'm just going to create a logout functionality here in my views. So what I will do here is that I'll just call the logout and go ahead and set the request. So the current request will be logged out from our system, which reminds me that I have to also call the logout here after our authenticate. And then since the user will be logged out, I want to return and redirect to our home page. Okay, so that is done. We are done with the view. We need to just connect this view with our URL. So here actually there should be in our accounts. Okay, so let me add the path, and here we'll call this as our logout. So here we'll go ahead and call the user logout function, and we'll pass the name, and we'll go say logout. And now all I need to do is to go ahead and add this URL to my file here, which is the home, the navigation. Just like in our login, I just need to add a URL tag for our logout. URL, yeah. So that's done. Now let me just go ahead and refresh. Since the user is already logged in, you can see the logout button here. If I push this to logout, now you can see this changed to logged in. If I refresh, this is still will be logged in. I think there should be a better way to prove this. What I can do here, that in the views, instead of redirect to home, I can just redirect the user to login. And one thing I can do also here, I need to show that later actually. If I refresh this, if I go ahead login and let's say if I add Nick, and then I'll just go ahead and copy Nick's password, and let's say paste and login, he will be redirected to the home page. And now we can just go ahead and click the logout, and it took us to the login page. But there is a flaw here. If for some reason, let me just say Nick, oh sorry about that, so say Nick, and we have here is paste and login. Okay, so we are in the page, but see this. If I go to the login page, even though I am logged in, I can still access the login page. This is a flaw, and we don't want the logged in user to visit the login page. So what we can do here is that in the views, in the user login, what we can do here, we can validate or check if the request dot user dot is authenticated. So if the user is authenticated, then redirect the user where it should be always redirected to whom if the user is already authenticated. So let me go ahead and refresh, and you can see that it is now taking us back to the home page. Even if I go ahead and again try to log in, it will take us back to the home page, and if I click the logout button, it will take us back to the login page. So I hope guys that covers the topics of this lesson for today. Now I tried my best to explain each concept as much as possible in the shortest amounts of time, so that your time doesn't get waste. And the one thing I would request you is to, since I will be just pushing this all my work to the GitHub repository, you can just go to my GitHub repository, you can give it a star, you can go ahead and fork it, and you can just go ahead and study all the course, and you can just use it as your basic boilerplate for creating users login and logout functionality. So that's it for today guys, and I hope you guys really loved it and liked it. And if you are new to my channel, just go ahead and press the thumbs up button to the video if you actually liked it, and if you really want to enjoy more content of mine, then you can just go ahead and subscribe to the content, subscribe to my channel. And thank you guys, that's it for today. Bye bye.